Delaney. Here. Vice Robert Springs Jr. Andrew Hayes.
Here.
Dr. Arlie Brown.
Here.
Nadia Keene Ayub. Here. Bonnie Kank, I'm here. Ariana Federico. Here. Tim Ware. And G.I. Wilson.
Unicorn, thank you very much. Before we go to public comments, I just wanted to again reiterate what I said at 4:30. 4 o'clock. Thank you. We have a very heavy caseload, and I want to assure you that's the only reason that we had special meetings, so we get started on that, give our full attention to the cases. And we did not vote on any of them, and we will not vote on any of them until we've heard from the public. Council, is there anything that you want to say?
No, Honorable Chair, that is correct. And the closed session, the special meeting closed session will reconvene. That meeting will reconvene at the conclusion of this regular meeting.
Great, thank you very much. Mr. Parker, do we have members of the public that would like to speak?
We do. First, we will Brian Rumble.
Okay, so I'm back. So really what I want to continue to talk about really what gave us this opportunity. When we fail to really understand where law enforcement should draw the line, where a person's rights are essentially where that line is drawn, then we have absolutely failed. This country, we had great opportunities to still have a lot of things around. But we have things that are caught on video where it should be, it's a cut and dry situation. I have that man that brutally assaulted my friend. Okay, I can tell you this right now. Ultimately, I have nothing against him, but I disrespect him every time. Especially the fact that he lied to me. Very cowardice thing to do. I have no idea how many people he's arrested during his stationing here in this building. Probably not too many. It's a failure of leadership. You know, ultimately what led me to my group of friends was I was trying to be a constitutional sheriff elected in San Diego County. Because we have completely forgotten what the opportunity of this country was. Yeah. As I've been speaking at these boards all throughout Southern California, I've had people tell me, oh, we don't need to go back to a constitutional way of life. You know, the Constitution was racist. They only made Black people 1/3 of a man. I mean, the education in this country is through the tubes. Okay, we need to fix a lot of the things here. Time's of the essence. Okay, I'm asking you guys to simply do this. Fill out your paperwork, give it to that sheriff. I was actually taking classes from constitutional. He refers to himself as a constitutional scholar. He told me the trip that he made from Riverside County down here to this previous sheriff, and this man knows his constitution. That's what he knows. He told me the cockamamie responses that were given to him by that sheriff board. So this is now a generational problem in this county. I was born in this county. I live in this county. Okay, I am not interested in I am not anti-sheriff. I am not anti-police. Okay, there's been times where I've certainly have crossed lines. Okay, but ultimately we need to improve. And when people do not understand what time it is to, I don't think this is concrete. Any of you that have seen that video, you watch her face get smashed into the concrete. You know what happens if I do that to your daughter?
Next, we will call, is Mr. Ellis here? No?
No, it's
Mr. Hankett. We'll call Mr. Hankett.
At 5:30, I reminded you that Deputy One Roll Robert's head and slammed it. totally excessive force. Audra was entitled to be told she was under arrest, taken for judge. And what's disturbing, very disturbing to me in terms of normal procedure is that a number of officers and civilians witnessed the assault. The report indicates that there were only two. And one of them being retired, CLERB did not interview. If one officer was retired, CLERB should have interviewed another or all of more, which there's no indication of it. Moreover, it seems that order was only none. Although there was Blue, Peter Brooks, then Sheriff Wright, the supervisors, and a whole room of people. It is disturbing and contrary to police policy that Deputy One did not turn on his body cam. See, CLERB rules and regulations, section 9.4. For this reason alone, I distrust his statements, and they should not be given full credit. I don't think that one should even be in a public position. Many laws are made to protect the people from the police who go out of control. The sheriff's office is untrained in these laws at their own risk. The investigative report is incomplete. All witnesses were evidently not interviewed. I was not interviewed. I originated the complaint. Apparently, the evidence is also incomplete. The report says, for deputy statements, cannot be publicly disclosed. Well, as far as I know, there's nothing wrong with characterizing them, which might help put things in perspective for all parties. It would be a gross miscarriage of justice to accept the investigative report as it is, and I recommend that it be rejected and redone.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. Consuelo?
Repeat what I said at 4 o'clock regarding the undue force Sheriff Gonzalez used against Audra at the San Diego County Supervisors meeting. They had already fingerprinted and booked her peacefully during 2 previous incidents. Dragging her out was unnecessarily painful, and any further force was definitely uncalled for once she was in the hallway. Having complete information about her, the sheriffs could have simply released her and written a ticket once she was in the hallway. They knew she was not violent or running away, and that she would continue her right to free speech at subsequent meetings, as she always does, and could have issued the ticket immediately or at any time. The video footage proves this and shows the harsh undue force by Sheriff Gonzalez when he could have easily written a ticket peacefully. Audra was already recovering from MS and went to the hospital for a concussion and ongoing damages. Okay, so like I said, it's just unfortunate that we have to be here. And, this board, our board of supervisors, they claim to, be for the women, and one incident is too many, but they lie. And, what I really want to let the people know, it's not, I hear people always saying, well, what are you guys gonna do? What do you, like, we're waiting on these people to, do something. It's not just up to them. It's up to us to not give up. It's up to us to continue to fight for, Saxon and people like Audra. And, it's so unfortunate that, I bring my children here because I want them to know that it is up. It's not up to government. Government is doing only harm. There is no justice. So it's going to be, Mm. I just don't believe in this. And I know you don't either, so
Free.
what system? It's sad. And I wish you guys all would wake up too, because this is not how life was intended to be. You go downtown, you see how it is, you see the things they do to everybody, and here in our halls are, you know, it's, I'm done.
That's the call of the board.
So it's sad because my sister and I, right, one right here, we spend a lot of our time in the beginning of COVID fighting for all of you guys, fighting for the police, fighting for the sheriff, fighting for the firefighters, for the right to choose to say no. Every week we would hold 2 rallies for them outside of their departments to let them know that we're standing by you. You guys can fight this too. We don't need you to comply and just go along to get along. And so every day we sit here and we fight for these things because it is life or death. We do it for all of you. We do it for all the kids, just to make sure that they can have a safe life. And it's like, if this can happen to me, and it's like, I don't really care that it happens. I don't want it happening to them. And how can you ensure they won't? You know, it's like, I may be injured for, I don't know how long, because with MS, it's something that you don't know. And I already had a bout where I went and got an injection in my back, and I was terrified for 3 days, thinking that I was going to be, what did I just do? And all because I wanted to feel some kind of relief, but it's like none of that report that you guys did had any of my information in it. And that's what's so sad, is that why did you waste 8 months of my time asking me to give you medical records and all of this stuff? And then later to be asked, what was I going to do if I wasn't assaulted? What was I going to do? Well, I was there to fight for people's freedoms and rights. That's what I was planning to do. I don't have some ulterior motives that I'm going to go rob a bank or beat up an officer. It's so sad because I can be told by these officers that if I did that, I would be in jail. And I've been in jail for less. I've been in jail for speaking in that room. And the day after I was arrested, one time I sat at the podium for 15 minutes while I was told to leave, and nothing happened that day. So it doesn't matter. That's why I keep pushing, because I don't know what day it's going to be that they're going to shoot me in the head just for fighting for freedom. But you know what? It will be worth every second, because I do it so that these kids and all the people that come after us don't have to go through this. And we keep fighting, and it's like, you know, we come to these people and these people talk about holding people's rights and all of this stuff, but it's just words. We live it. And look what happens. Look what happens all over the country with people coming and trying to fight for their kid. You can't even do that. This isn't a free country. And it's getting more and more bad. And it's like all these officers that we're fighting for them to stand up have gone. And now we're left with ones that are willing to do this, willing to get on their back and throw them around. I know all of these people. This was a target on me. And it has been aggressively so from the time I had 14 minutes. And you didn't put that in there. It's totally bogus. This needs to go.
That's what I should do.
Hello, again, Serena Weddle here representing Saxon Rodriguez, who died July 20th, 2021, which means I will be celebrating his 2-year anniversary. This meeting is different than a lot of the last. I've been to a lot of meetings. I know you guys all by name. You guys know me by face. I don't even need to introduce myself, but this meeting is a little different than the last. You know, I walked in and I saw a lot of red, white, and blue, and I was like, well, these people are against me. That's what they want us to believe. But it's crazy to sit here and listen to people people talk, the people that are for the police, the people that are for the sheriff's, you know, bring a window. I can't stand it. Sorry to say. But it's sad to know that the same people that, you know, will fight for the police and their rights have been abused by these police. And I'm sad, always here for the in custody deaths, and I want to bring to the attention that we have 9 in custody deaths. It is July 11, 2023. My brother was number 7, 2020. So we are on a roll. We are trying to surpass last year's death toll at this point. Taxpayers want to pay money. We want to send Paul Parker on lots of journeys this year. And I want to say, I state that you're tired all the time, but I also want to say I'm really appreciative to what you have done. You have to see my brother on a jail cell dead. Like, you don't know what I would give to see my brother dead where he last laid. And that, it takes a lot to say that, but you got to see my brother in his last moment. And I pray that you never see any of these faces in a jail cell on the floor, dead. The last 3 lives you got to see, I'm not sure how it works, but they made it to a hospital. I think it was the last time. I don't think that I would be able to survive seeing my brother die in a hospital and then the sheriffs take over. Imagine you laying next to your loved one as they're brain dead because they didn't prevent his suicide, because they didn't prevent his fentanyl overdose, because he was 66 years old. And like I said, that's not old, but the sheriffs are going to tell you that's old. I couldn't imagine being those families having to lay there with their loved ones and die. And I pray again, you never see any of these ones die. My 3 minutes is already up. And again, it's just going to keep growing if we don't see change. These same people that say they fought for, you know, Blue Lives Matter, but yet they're not showing that the community lives matter. It's going to get out of hand. And we need to see change. If CLERB is here to make change, we need to get it done. Because the lives just keep growing. Next time I see you in August, what number?
Thank you. I have no other requests to speak in person. Am I missing any? Okay, so with that, we'll go to one line. David Settles.
My guy, David. So miss all my people.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Yes, hi. I'm David Settles. I'm the brother of Matthew Settles, who passed away 11 months ago now in the George Bailey. So, you know, I think I've spoken before at the CLERB, but I'd just like to reiterate, you know, hearing all the stories of the families and videos from many of the families of what's happened to their loved ones in the jail, and really, you know, knowing that we would have never gotten the real story if there hadn't been video evidence. You know, my family, my mom and my brother, who I believe are also on, you know, we still don't have any information of what happened to Matthew during the 11 months. You know, he was taken out of the county mental hospital. He had schizophrenia and put into George Bailey. You know, all we know, we still have zero information 11 months later. So for 2 months, he was, you know, in the downtown jail, then George Bailey. We don't know why he was transferred. We don't know what treatment, you know, whether he was on his meds. We don't know why he was transferred out of the psych unit at downtown, or when he was transferred to George Bailey, or why, and, you know, or any of the details of when he was assaulted and he, you know, had to hospital. He had damage to his head. We don't know any of the details. So what I'm just asking for, yes, is fight for that transparency. You know, we need better transparency. And I'd like to support, you know, SB 519, better treatment for the mentally ill in the jails, and the transparency. So we know what happened to my brother. We just don't know. And, you know, that's what we're here for, is to find out what he went through and how he was treated, what treatment he got. And we know it wasn't sufficient because he ended up dying, and that was our worst fears. So we do need reform. Thank you so much for letting me speak. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Tuttle. Next, we will go to Karen Remus.
Mr. Parker, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, CLERB members. My name is Karen Remus, and I'm a 25-year resident of zip code 92131. On June 8th, the Union Tribune reported on new grand jury recommendations about expanding the use of body scanners to reduce the flow of illegal drugs into San Diego County jails. Among the recommendations made were a call for the sheriff to consider a plan to screen everyone who enters a jail, including sworn deputies. CLERB, you previously recommended physically searching or body scanning all people, including employees entering the jails. As we know, the sheriff rejected your recommendation. I really appreciate that you resubmitted this recommendation to the sheriff's department. Tonight, I ask you to renew your efforts to implement a physical search or body scan requirement of all people, including staff entering our county jails. The grand jury's report provided important factual findings that countermand reasoning offered by the sheriff's department when it initially rejected your recommendation. Please use the grand jury's report and findings to shine a light on this issue and push for implementation of your recommendation. Thank you for your service to our county and for the opportunity to address you this evening.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Yusef Noor.
I gotta let him have it, okay?
Mr. Noor,
You hear me?
we can.
This is Yusef Miller with the North County Equity and Justice Coalition, the Saving Lives in Custody campaign. And I'm gonna be brief because I'm in the airport about to go through security. But CLERB, what we need from you is to stand up for these bills that are for jail reform. I am coming from Sacramento right now, where SB 519 has passed through public safety, but CLERB does not have a stance on it. I'm at the Capitol where AB 268 has just passed through public safety, and CLERB does not have a stance on it. We need you to stand on the right side of this issue to let the families know that you support them in their struggles, their loss of life of their loved ones, and you're into real reform and not just window dressing. Your delay on standing up for these bills makes people pause and wonder, are you making changes sincerely? We need you to do this, and we need to see this from you. These bills are going to go through without you. We need you to be on the right side of this issue. These families are suffering, and they've been suffering for years with no transparency, very little accountability, and the issue of the jails with the influx of drugs is getting worse, and we see nothing to show for it that has any substance to it. We need for people to be scanned, everyone, staff, deputies, and everyone to be scanned by dogs and the machines, but we see nothing coming to fruition. Stay on the task of holding the sheriff accountable for making sure that these life-saving reforms are met. I'm sorry I can't stay longer. I have to go through security right now, but please make the right choice and back these bills. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Dave Myers. Mr. Myers.
Thank you. Everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Thank you. My name is Dave Myers, lifelong resident of San Diego County, 35-year veteran of law enforcement, retired as a sheriff's commander. Today, I'm sure most of you know that a federal judge granted a request to release internal sheriff's Critical Incident Review Board jail death documents related to 12 in custody deaths. I have two requests. First request is for the County Law Enforcement Review Board to make a very public statement that they are in favor of the release of these documents because the CLERB board is independent, an investigative body, and its mandate is jail death investigations. Currently, the Board of Supervisors voted to oppose the release of these documents and voted to appeal. Your vote on this issue to release the documents will demonstrate two things: your independence and your request as a fact-finding body. The second request is, once those documents are reviewed, is have the chair initiate a subcommittee to ensure that the records and statements you have on file of those 12 jail deaths are consistent with statements and records released by the Sheriff's Department. Consistency is vitally important to the trust within law enforcement and the trust that can come from your board reviewing and making recommendations on those jail deaths. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move to the next person, I'd like to just briefly respond to item number one that Mr. Myers just mentioned. This board has made 4 policy recommendations for the release of critical incident review board records. We have yet to receive a response from the Sheriff's Department.
That's hilarious.
Of course.
Next, we will go to Charlie Fishman.
Good evening. Fishman, he, him, his, the racial justice, San Diego. I did want to first acknowledge that with what Sabrina said about the meeting, it's good to see more people and new people there. Unfortunately, in the circumstances where it's a complaint about sheriff deputies abuse, that's never good. I would hope that, as suggested, that all of your cases, of course, all the complaints that are submitted with sheriff deputies, that you do take them seriously. In a special meeting, that there were very few sustained charges. That part of your process is really, again, taken very seriously. Next to in custody deaths. Ultimately, your accountability, like the district attorney's office, determines what the sheriffs believe and understand they can do and what they can get away with. And clearly, we have the type of rate again this year for in custody deaths. It's an extreme and very serious problem. I also wanted to add that thanks Sabrina and David and impacted families for their testimony. It's part of the grounding that needs to be understood. All this is connected and flows out of the fact that you continue to have impacted families come here. You continue to have loved ones that have to come and testify and explain how they and what happened to their relative. The documents are kept from them. And this is for days, for months, even in cases. I agree with what all parts just said. And David, Dave Myers was exactly right. I want to just say that you should also, for CLERB, you should also very much feel vindicated by the judge's position. It's not some extreme political or radical position. The work that you're doing really is validated by the judge. You are on the right track. You are looking after our interests. These reports, critical incident reports, should be released. Sheriff Martinez should have stuck with her promise. And we should have never gotten to the point where a judge needs to validate the obvious point in the work that you guys have been doing. Thank you for that. Stick with it. You might not necessarily get the validation from a judge like this, but you can be sure from the community members and impacted families that are coming here, you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing. And it might not often seem like that, but certainly history and time will verify that and show that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fishman. Next, we will go to Paloma Sol.
Hello, yes. Thank you once again for letting me speak. I'm Elisa Cerna's mother and I back the bills. the two bills that are being, that are going through, I think the Senate now. It's like what I have stated earlier in the earlier meeting, we need transparency badly. With the CLERB report being denied to the public, to families, to our attorneys. It shows deception. What are they hiding? What are they scared of? Are they here for the people or not? It is us, the community, who place these people in the seats that they sit in now. And also too, Yusuf said it beautifully, we really do need your guys' help to back these bills, and show your independence. See, that you are the citizen board for the people of San Diego. And just hearing these other stories of the people that are there now in the audience, that they're here for another, incident, it just shows how we have to end qualified immunity, that people are being taken advantage because these deputies, these police, they think they're above the law. And it's like what Sabrina Weddle was saying, me personally, I have friends and family who are in law enforcement. I'm not against all police. We need to weed out all the bad ones, and we need to continue to fight together. This affects everybody. It doesn't affect race. It doesn't affect our political belief, our religious belief. This is affecting everybody. These in custody deaths. We really need to have a stop. We need reports. We need people to be released. We need people to be held accountable, every single one. And I thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Sandra Oblio.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Sandra Obledo. I would like to respectfully request that my minutes go to Sabrina Weddle, who is in the audience.
Okay.
Wait a minute, sorry, she said we couldn't.
She said that we could not give Steve time to.
I speak for you.
Okay.
I just think you
We-
should do it equitably.
we have-
Hang on, guys, hold on, let us figure out, we want to do the best we can for you, so give me just a second. Council,
Chair, it's up to you, it's up to the board, but whatever it is, that should be done equitably. If there have been no treatment, then you should not start doing that.
Okay.
Okay, so we apologize if any misinformation was given. It's just simply because we did not consult with counsel, so I'll take the hit on that. So what we'll do is, I have no idea, but what we'll do is that, we'll,
Is there anyone here that wanted or wasn't able to see their minutes?
I wanted.
No, hold on, just raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay. Okay,
yeah, and then the young lady on the phone, that's 9 minutes, so.
all right, how about we do this? We want to hear you. Board, are we okay if we give them 2 minutes? They see the minutes? Are we okay with that?
With them having full.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay,
That's what we're gonna do, okay?
with
Okay,
that,
but I want you to make sure that you fill out the correct paperwork and let's be. Okay,
let's fill out the paperwork first. Give me some paperwork. All right, so I know who I'm calling.
all right, so
At
you
once.
can start first, okay?
Okay. All right.
Lack of on your bed.
We're human.
I know,
but you're like, how your paperwork.
Well,
I just want to make sure that we have it in order and we're gonna allow it, so.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, guys. Okay, so, I wanted to bring to the attention that this meeting was a little bit different, but I also want to state, again, I'm in full support of the sheriff said, like I said, we're done with Saxon was number 721, we're at death number 9, so there's no change. On top of it, it's increased deaths. I don't even know what the count was in 2022. I don't know if we were at number 9 by July. Like I said, Saxon was number 7, 2021. That was off of in the last 7 days in the sheriff's record as of 6:22 updated, but we've had in the last 7 days, according to the sheriff's record, as of 6/22, 3 overdoses and the total of 84. So that means drugs are still getting into San Diego. This can't just be by inmates. The inmates are they have to bend over and cough. The only people that don't have to do that are the sheriff's deputies. On time and time again, I've done protests outside of the jails. The last one I did was on Saxon's 24th birthday. They had an ambulance in San Diego County Jail for 22 minutes, picking up an inmate. What was the reason that we're having an ambulance in a San Diego County Jail that's not a hospital for 22 minutes? Was it an overdose? Was it another attempted suicide? Either way, something is happening and ambulances are needing to be called. 84 Narcan deployments needed to happen within 6 months, 7 months. Jail, fentanyl and drugs are still getting into jail. So we need to start scanning these deputies. I feel like Kelly Martinez doesn't want to do it. She's running the drug chain. She's making bank. She's making big boy bank. Now you got Mr. Gore on scripts thing. So not only are the overdoses leaving the jail, but going to him. So who's taking these bodies? Like I said, I just wanted to bring it to attention that this year, as of 6/22, yet we're on 7/11, 84 overdoses, total suspected overdoses have happened. 33 in San Diego County Jail, 24 in Vista Detention Facility, 18 in Las Colinas Detention Facility. George Bailey has had 8. I don't know what EMRF is. But like I said, the inmates get scammed when they go in. CVPD sent my brother's fentanyl home. So who's bringing these drugs into jail that Narcan needs to be deployed? Right. Thank you.
Next, we will, Michael Brando, I'm sorry, is it Brando?
Yeah.
Michael Brando is ceding his 3 minutes to.
Oh, thanks.
Appreciate you guys being equitable on that. So, I think it's important. That's why, as you can see, those things are important to me. So fairness is something that, I'll always call out and make sure to bring light to it, because when we let lies and things continue, it's when things perpetuate. So that's why it's so important for me to do things like that. And I think one sad thing is that this board is just an advisory board. You guys don't really have any authority to tell the sheriff what they need to do. You just give them recommendations. And that's where, there's a problem line, because, as you're telling the sheriff that you want them to check their own employees going into the jails, they refuse to do it. And when I asked the sheriff to look into this and my assault, they exonerated him. And they didn't even, and they also did investigate it. Didn't ask anybody, didn't ask my friend here who films this stuff. And they said, even in your report, you're saying that, I couldn't hear the commands because of him yelling that they're hurting me, that they're violating my rights. The only thing they said to me was, Audra, calm down. And how can you say it's not a targeted attack when they know my name? Nathan knows my name, Audra, right? When they're calm, and the sheriff, they all know my name. And as I'm pleading to them and crying and saying, why are you guys doing this? Because I know them personally. When we talk to them all the time, and many times they come and tell us, thank you for what you're doing. Even people that work at this building do it all the time. But yet we're targeted, and it is because from the time I had a 14-minute speech and the sheriffs are surrounding, just because I'm talking like this, and actually I was talking to the people and trying to tell them, it's up to us, like Consuelo was saying, it's up to us to take all this back and make things right. We come to all these people, and there are people that aren't willing to do what we're doing. And we want to stand in the gap because it's so important. But it's if I can't go and just speak in front of it and not be surrounded by officers with guns and bulletproof vests and tasers and mace and handcuffs, how is that not trying to intimidate the speakers that are going up and just redressing their government, which is a First Amendment right? That's what we're supposed to do. And the reason why things happen like this is because we haven't been doing our job. We allow this to happen, and that's why we're in this place, and it couldn't be more sad. But that's why I fight like I do. And that's why I said, even if they like killed me tomorrow, it would be worth it. Every moment. And it's still worth it to just be in pain like this. It's like, I don't know if any of like, you don't know what it's like to not walk for 8 years. I had a spine attack. Guy hit my spine 3 times. I couldn't walk. And it's like, by the grace of God, he's given me another chance at life. And I never felt like, you know, like I had a purpose in life. And like every, like, what are you going to do that really makes a difference?
Thanks, Maureen. That time is up. However, Jessica Williams has ceded 3 minutes to you.
Thank you. And, I don't know what I'm saying, but, you know, it's like, oh, okay, so, I didn't feel like I had something that was like, you know, I felt like my life was purposeless. And finally, when I started fighting and getting into this, I felt like it wasn't more purpose-filled because I see what the future could be and what we're supposed to be doing and what we're not doing. And if we don't do this for the kids, it's like, who's going to do it for them? A board like this that has no authority? A board that won't even investigate and actually talk to all the people involved? I mean, the head sheriff was sitting in the room, rocking back and forth in his chair, listening to me scream, not doing anything. And he is the head sheriff at the time. And even now, Kelly Martinez. Doesn't matter how much people talk about women or one victim is too many. I'm sick of hearing that. Because we have all these victims that keep piling up. Like I said, it's like being a kid again and having like to call the predator who abused me for years at the police station. I was terrified to do that at 12 years old. And then 2 years later, when I go to court and they side with him, it's like, no wonder why pedophilia is so rampant. Because they're engaged in it. And all these people that we come to try and like plead and be like, because you take an oath and it's like, you think that means something to people. But does it when they're the ones like coming and just because I'm speaking at a meeting, I deserve to be thrown out into the hallway, have my head slammed in. I've got damage in both my arms that they never go away. Damage in my spine, which is an addition to the damage I already had. And it's like, I've had plenty of concussions, but I mean, having this one didn't help. And they talk on top of each other. And it's like, you know, I might look like Antifa and I got tattoos and I don't look like, you know, someone in a business suit. But that doesn't matter. And it shouldn't matter. What should matter is what's in your heart. And I feel like all these times when we like elect people or select these people, not really going after what's in their heart. It's like, incredible Republic, what box do you fit in? We need to go back to the heart. Because if we don't have love for each other or anybody, this is what happens. And that's why I know that justice will come from God, because he will do what's just and fair. Because we can't rely on the people to do it. Because we have emotions, we have all these things, and people look at me and they're like, oh, she deserved it. Well, put yourself in that position and wonder what would happen if it was your daughter, your niece, yourself. And would you be doing the same thing you're doing and not really investigating it, but saying you are?
Next, we're going to go to the phone call that ends in the call ends in 7653. The hand is not raised, and I know that they wish to speak. So let's see if we can make that work this way. 7653, is this Karen or Jeff? Karen? Karen, are you there?
Yep, this is Jeff. Can you hear me?
Jeff, we can hear you. Your 3 minutes starts.
All right. Thank you. My name is Jeff, and I'm a retired police officer. For 15 years as a patrol sergeant, I conducted these sorts of internal investigations on my officers that were accused of misconduct. With extensive related experience, I know this case with Audra Morgan and Deputy Gonzalez is a slam dunk excessive force case. For the deputy to have been exonerated for his completely unnecessary, over-the-top actions is an embarrassment to all of law enforcement. Miss Morgan didn't need to be dragged out of chambers by one arm like an animal. She weighs like 90 pounds wringing wet. 2 officers could have easily and professionally removed her. There was no urgency or threat that one officer needed to literally drag her out. Miss Morgan didn't need to be tossed on the ground the way she was. And then the ultimate, that big elbow that Deputy Gonzalez dropped on the back of Audra's cervical spine is absolutely inexcusable. There were a whole group of deputies standing around doing nothing as Gonzalez dropped that very dangerous elbow on the back of her neck. It is slam dunk excessive force. There's simply no realistic way to justify it, period. Embarrassing.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Burns. Burns, are you there?
All right. Sorry, can you hear me now?
We can.
All right. So my name is Burns. My address is 7098. For those who may or may not know me, I'm a nurse at San Diego Central Jail. My name has been publicly blasted all over the internet, on YouTube, specifically by Ms. Weddle.
Okay,
My personal.
hold on a second. I know this is hard.
It is the most, I know, but let's responsible for my brother being died.
We let you speak. Let's let her speak, okay? Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, since March of 28th, since the original CLERB meeting that took place, my name has been publicly announced on the internet and on the street corner of my workplace, as well as 8 of my other coworkers. My personal safety has been at risk ever since this has happened. I'm fully aware of the CLERB's actions and what they want to do and everything, and we as a medical team are all for it. We just ask that certain safety provisions are taken accountable, like not releasing our names out to the public so we cannot be found. Since this event, I've had to move to different facilities in order to secure my safety. I know a lot of people are questioning on where the drugs come from, but I'm sorry to say, but a lot of them come from the people who are sitting right next to you in that meeting. I'm not going to talk about the ways the drugs that come into jail by inmates, because I don't want to release any information that would lead other people to perform the same actions. I know this might sound harsh, but millions of people die from fentanyl overdoses every year, regardless if it's in their home, on the street, or in the work or in the jails.
And this is a nurse. People in jail.
I would just like to say that if an overdose does happen in the jail, the best place for them to get medical treatment is in the jail, because we have all the resources, Narcan and basically emergency medical services that we can provide. Sorry, I'm driving at the same time, so I'm trying to be safe. So that's my major point. If you want us to be held accountable, I would expect the CLERB to be accountable for their actions and remove my name from all public entities and forums. So.
Melissa Burns, are you sorry? She's not sorry. She's
Okay, come on, guys. We gave you the opportunity. Okay, let's be respectful, okay?
Ms. Burns, are you complete? Finished?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Thank you. And to be clear, CLERB has never released any names yet.
You can thank, she can thank her work department, Aldo Hernandez.
So next we will go to, I have a couple of comments to read into the record, that request to be read into the record. So let me do that now. Just bear with me for just a second. The first one is from Karen V. Reference the assault on Miss Audrey Morgan by SD County Sheriff's Officer Gonzalez Banks 0283. And again, I'm only saying it because it's in the public record. I didn't say it. I mean, I didn't post it. I watched the video of her being dragged out of the board of supervisor meeting room and then dragged by the foot into the hallway. The officer then sat on her for several minutes. He's much larger and heavier than Miss Morgan. He didn't communicate with her. The situation could have been diffused if he talked with her. It also looked like he reached under her body in the area of her breasts. This needs to be reviewed. This is excessive force, and the officer needs to be counseled and reprimanded. That's from Karen B. Next record to be read into the record was from last meeting that was canceled, but was asked to be pushed forward to this meeting. My name is Dale Birchby. I'm a 35-year-old San Diego resident and an active member of Showing Up for Racial Justice, North County, San Diego. I want to thank the members of CLERB and this department in particular for the patience, perseverance, time, and energy you exhibited on behalf of incarcerated persons regarding jail deaths, drug screening for everyone entering the buildings, prompt release of more detailed information from the Critical Incident Review Board, and now Welfare Fund Administration. It is clear that much work needs to be done in these areas. I am very frustrated by the continual resistance from the Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Martinez personally, despite her previous promises on these issues of simple justice, accountability, and government transparency. Such behavior demands firm and steady pressure and actions from us citizens on behalf of our powerless sisters and brothers. Please continue to press for the accountability these issues demand. Thank you. And the final request to be read also came from last meeting with a request to move it forward to be read into this meeting. My name is Tom Packard, and I'm a member of Showing Up for Racial Justice, North County. I appreciate the progress that the Sheriff's Department has made regarding clinician staffing at the jails, and I especially appreciate the leadership of Assistant Sheriff Teresa Adams-Hydar and her engagement with her community. I also appreciate Sergeant Hingley's work with the clerk. There are larger overriding issues that I hope the clerk will address by asking Sheriff Martinez herself to attend the clerk meeting and answer some questions that only she can fully answer. I appreciate that Chair Delaney reported in January that she has invited her to attend clerk meetings. In spite of recent changes, I've seen no evidence of specific efforts the sheriff has taken to change the overall organizational culture in the jails. This is an essential factor regarding successful implementation of plans to reduce jail deaths and improve behavioral health services. Please ask her to specifically describe how she assesses the organizational culture in the jails, including how the department's mission and core values are applied. Other questions could include these. What specifically has she done in working with staff to make sure they clearly understand the organization's core values and are committed to operationalize? What is being done on a regular basis to ensure people are behaving with reference to the core values? What changes need to be made regarding work culture to get the performance she wants from employees? What are her core principles for leadership? How has she used her leadership to create change? And finally, what performance and quality improvement processes are in effect or planned to address jail deaths? Thank you for your attention. With that, Chair Delaney, I have no request to speak in person or remote.
Thank you.
Carol wanted to speak and Jen, so I don't know if she can still speak,
Jeff spoke, so
Yeah,
we'll go with Jeff, but Kara's still on that. Okay,
but it might be the same number.
let's see what happens.
That's fine. Thank you.
Kara, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
You can. Kara, your 3 minutes starts now.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kara, and I'm a resident San Diegan of going on now 41 years. And I am appalled as a citizen what I've watched go on in the Board of Supervisors rooms. I'm appalled for a lot of reasons, but the thing that really got me was watching what Deputy Gonzalez said to Audra Morgan. You know, Audra has shown up for San Diego and San Diegans religiously for the last 3 years since the whole scamdemic happened. She was going to every meeting, speaking on every item. She spoke up for people in law enforcement. She spoke up for people in fire department, teachers. And now we need whatever leadership we have in San Diego, which I believe is very, very small, hairline even, to stand up for Audra. The corruption in California is thick. It feels like a big, big monster sometimes, but I'm not going to give it any more power than it already thinks it has. The San Diego corruption also seems to be just as thick. I don't call Kelly Martinez sheriff because I believe that that is a title that deserves respect, and it's held by somebody with integrity. And the fact that she has done all kinds of things in San Diego, but especially in regards to her dismissal of what happened with Audra, and especially after seeing the videos, it's abhorrent, it's awful, and it makes me really feel as a citizen that I can't trust, anything as far as leadership in San Diego. That ranges from police officers to sheriffs to judges to anything. And, we're living in really, really insane times right now. And you don't want to feel like you can't trust the police officers or you can't trust the sheriffs, but that's the times that we're living in. And, I think it's really sad that it's come down to this board to have to, I don't know if it does anything against Gonzalez. I realize it's just citizens, but we need to feel that there's a little bit of integrity still left in San Diego County. And I think that it's going to start there in that boardroom with you all. It really feels like our county's been stolen overnight from, watching what's gone on in those Board of Supervisors rooms, city council rooms, MTS board rooms, everything. It just feels like, we're living in a nightmare. So I ask you guys to please stand up for Audra when no one else has. Thank you.
Carol. Next, we'll go to Jennifer Schmidt. Jennifer Schmidt did not speak during this public comment for this meeting, so we will go to Jennifer Schmidt. Actually, we won't. All right, well, Jennifer Schmidt is one. Yes, she is. She's not.
She has five.
Actually, it looks like Paloma is not supposed to be doing this public comment. Yes, okay, unfortunately, we're not calling you, but if Jennifer Schmidt is there. All right, at this point, we are going to turn it back over to you. Oh, wait, actually, I think I have one more request to read. Actually, look at you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, members of the public. Appreciate your comments. The next one is approval of the minutes. And the first one is June 20.
I voted for the minutes of June 20.
Any second? I'll second. All right, any discussion? Do the roll call, please.
Chair Eileen Delaney.
Yes.
Vice Chair Marion Pintar.
Yes.
Andrew Hayes.
Yes.
Dr. Early Brown.
Yes.
Nadia King. She just stepped out. Bonnie Pink, yes. Ariana Pico Mondragon.
Yes.
And Tim Ware.
Yes.
And you say, we
Yeah.
So can we get before the next meeting, remind me who did the first and the second, please?
So that's first.
Sure, Vice Chair Pintar, and then who was the second? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. June 29 minutes. Do we have any revisions, concerns, with motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, with minutes.
I'll start it.
Okay, first by Hayes, seconded by Brown. Any other discussion? Hey guys, can you keep it down? Thank you. We have to kind of listen to one another here. All right, all those in favor? I'm sorry, can you roll call, please?
Chair Eileen Delaney.
Yes.
Vice Chair Marion Pintar.
Yes.
Andrew Hayes.
Yes.
Dr. Early Brown.
Yes.
Nadia King, Ayub, still not here. Bonnie Pink, yes. Ariana Pedrico Mondragon.
Yes.
Tim Ware.
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved. Our next is presentations, the family liaison program overview by the Sheriff's Department, Lieutenant Joseph. Okay, I can go two ways here. I can go Jajura or Jahara.
First one.
All right. I would like, I have a very special request for our members of the public. If you could please be respectful. I know that this is a really emotional charge, but I'd like to hear what he has to say. It's important for all of us to learn. So if you could please keep your comments and quiet. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for be here. Lieutenant Barr will do the presentation at the last meeting. Unfortunately, he's away.
No.
I don't know if you talk louder or.
Are you going to?
It's on.
It's on.
Should be
It's
on.
on.
It's on.
Make it respond.
I can talk much louder.
Thank you.
So I do not have a clicker. I don't know.
I can help you.
Thank you. So why do we have the FLO program? And FLO stands for Family Liaison Officer. Well, the department recognized that families who experience the death of a loved one during either a deputy-involved shooting, a use of force, or in custody death, needed information about what happened. And we didn't necessarily have one point of contact. We could give them information, but it was different people providing that information. And sometimes, we couldn't get a hold of someone or they weren't sure who to talk to. So we wanted to try to streamline it and make sure it was a better way to do it. So we wanted to do it in a caring and compassionate way. And we looked at different lieutenants who, because of their ranks, would have access to something. And then also had just different experience, whether it be work experience or life experience, dealing with different things, not only in law enforcement, but just in the regular life. And we started using the station. And then we took different feedback and we tried to improve the program. And we realized that station lieutenants have a lot of other things going on. So we tried to just get a group of people that this is what they focus. They're still lieutenants, but this is a particular skill that we wanted them to focus on it in a particular group that we wanted them to be able to give their proper attention to. So in January 2019, that's when we started the program again with all lieutenants. And then we added into our PMP in August of 2019, our policies and procedures. And then April of 2021, so a little over 2 years now, that's when we selected a specific group of lieutenants to be the family liaison officers. They get different training, like I said, on top of their current experience with law enforcement and life. And we do brief training with them. Also, we have chaplains that are part of this, and the chaplains are not only part of the training, but they also help provide training as well. We've developed protocols and again, different experience. We have 5 FLOs in the program. We actually right now have a 6th because Alex is away. And so we didn't want to just leave the spot empty. So we actually brought a 6th person in. So we have 6 now. They rotate on a weekly basis. They're on call 24/7, just like our investigative teams are on call. And each FLO is paired up with a chaplain. And the chaplains have been doing this for quite a while, actually longer than our FLOs in most cases. And the main thing about this program is the FLO is just a liaison. They are not an investigator. They are not involved in the case whatsoever or in the incident at all. They're just simply there to be a liaison for the family. That's the whole. So kind of the way that it would work is the homicide sergeant would contact the family liaison officer after we have an incident that meets that criteria. And the homicide sergeant would provide a synopsis, explain kind of what we have at that moment. Again, when things happen locally, it's preliminary information. And sometimes that is inaccurate. You just don't know what you're going to get, but at least we contact them based off the information and we start to tell them what we have. We work with the medical examiner's office to try to get next of kin information and just some related documents that we think they're going to need. The family liaison officer contacts the chaplain and they work as a team together from that point on. They'll contact the medical examiner, investigator, and they talk about how we're going to make notification and who to notify. And then they stay in touch with the homicide sergeant just for any updates, because again, the homicide investigators are constantly learning more information and it evolves, and we try to keep them updated as much as we can.
So again, when we try to verify that next of kin, the telephone or address, sometimes we use law enforcement databases because we don't have any other information. No one has provided that to us. Then the family is contacted, ideally and when possible in person, but sometimes it is over the phone. Again, the chaplain works with the FLO to do that. Sometimes it's a medical examiner doing it or a detective, but most of the time we try to do it that way. And again, we're still evolving. We're still trying to make things better. We give the family the preliminary information. You know, sometimes we actually give them the notification, which is very difficult to do, as you can imagine. Every family is a little bit different, so we try to give each family the care and compassion that they need. Some require more than others, some require different things, and honestly, some don't want to talk. And that's understandable too. We'll try again if they don't want to. We'll try again maybe the next day, or we'll ask them, hey, is there a family member or someone you would like us to talk to instead? So we don't just give up because, you know, we try to put ourselves in their place, and everybody reacts differently to tragedy. Ultimately, our goal is to give them resources. So something just as simple as how to collect their loved one's property. What is the next step they normally have? How long might the medical examiner's autopsy and report take? And whether you know it or not, on average, maybe it's 8 to 10 months, right? And that's how long it takes for some families to get any answers whatsoever, because we don't have. We need the medical examiner's office to do it. Sorry. Again, and then we just constantly do follow-up. We try to, again, go by what the family requests. There's some families that like daily follow-up. There's some families that don't want any. There's some families that say, talk to my attorney. I don't want to talk. And just so you know, we don't talk to attorneys. We don't go through that. That's a separate thing. But if they would like us to speak to another family member or a friend or someone from a religious background that they have, we're more than willing to do that with the family's permission. And then our goals for the program are pretty much what they were from the beginning, but they're still here. We want to serve the needs of the families of the people that have died in our custody or through some type of incident that we were involved in. We want to improve communication by providing a single point of contact. This way things don't get lost and they can develop that rapport with that person. And again, because they're not part of the incident, they're not part of the investigation, they can just focus on, I'm here to help you and I'm here to get you answers. And sometimes I'll be honest, it is frustrating because they say, well, if you don't have the answers, then why are you the one talking to me? So it gets very frustrating for the family and sometimes for our FLOs because they want to give the answers, but they don't know it because they're not part of the investigation. And ultimately the goal is to help the family through this time. However, we can. Every family again is different. So depending on the request, we take all the requests into account. And if it's something we can do for them, we try to do. So here are some ways that we're improving the program and we have, improved it. Myself and the FLOs, we discuss the cases, we try to learn from each other. We have regular meetings where everybody comes together and we talk about, hey, on this case, this is something that happened to me. I wasn't expecting it. And this is what I did and this is how I learned from it. We also will contact each other and just say, hey, this case just happened. This incident just happened. I've never dealt with it before. How have you dealt with this in the past? And then they will try to work together, come up with a game. Again, we're always trying to take feedback, constructive criticism. We're okay taking constructive criticism. The goal is to help the family out in the end. So if there's any ideas on how to do that, we are open ears for sure. And then again, we just apply the lessons that we learned just to try to help the community not only understand the process, but just go through the grieving process a little bit. So just a couple things about the program. We are the only agency in the county that has this program. I spoke with LAPD in the past. They were the first ones that I am aware of that actually came up with the program. Speaking with LAPD, we basically do everything very similarly. There's always a few little differences. They are not aware of any other department in the entire state that has the program. So it's us and LAPD. And again, we're always looking for feedback from you folks. We're definitely looking for feedback because we know that probably more than most people, you guys are intimately involved and know a lot about law enforcement and everything, how it works. So we definitely value your opinion, but also from the families and the community.
Okay, do we have questions? Dr. Brown, you have a question?
Thank you for the report. It was very informative, educational, insightful. There are 5 of you, right? 5 of you.
Now 6, so you're 5.
And you heard a lot of these. I noticed that we have people gone now. So the chairs. I know you're probably not at liberty to say whether or not you have contact with these family members and so on, which I believe you have. What are some of the things that you feel that we or people in the community continue to help you all with, even do a better job? I know this has got to be tough for not only you, for the families, everybody involved. What are some of the things you think could be done that maybe are not done that that would be helpful for you to even do an even better job? I talk about the coroner taking so long. What is it? How can we help with that process? Why does it take the coroner so long? Is it just science, or what is it? Is it just the backup, or can we ask for some kind of special attention to this, the death, and for them to put those in front of the other people? I know everybody's hurting the death, but those are something that happens in our system. What can be done to speed up the coroner's response so we can have more information for them? Do you need help from us getting that push that we does do?
You know, to be honest, I don't want to speak for the coroners, for the medical examiner's office. I really don't know. What I've been told though, because we have constantly, what I've been told is because of the backlog, because of the sheer numbers, there's only so many people that can do autopsies. The autopsies are actually done fairly quickly, at least the initial autopsy. It's the report and how long it takes sometimes for toxicology to come back and for them to write reports. And, they really do a great job with the numbers that they have and the amount of people that they have, and the science that goes into it and everything. But we ask them, you know, all the time. Yeah, I just don't know the answer.
Yeah, I think
that's something out of these meetings, constantly thinking about how can we shorten that process? How can we give the families more information sooner in what the actual process is like? In other words, you know, when you lose a loved one, you know, it's really difficult. And I was trying to figure out why does it take, you know, as long as some people maybe it doesn't take us some people, but people give the benefit of the doubt. What's the amount of time, you know, from the time you get, usually take the coroner like 8 months or something like that?
On average, it's probably somewhere around 8.
And you're explaining this to the families that there's a backlog of the coroners and that there's nothing much to do at that point until we wait for the coroner's report.
We do explain to them and we tell them that as we get some information, we'll pass that along. So there's always an initial investigation or examination, I should say, at the coroner, and then there's the extended wait. So we will pass along when they can say the manner and the cause of death. We will pass that along to the family. However, the full report and sometimes the real information that they want doesn't come for many months after. We don't have that.
I think Mr. Parker can answer that, being a death investigator with Andy's office for a number of years.
First and foremost, I'm not with the office now. I was at Lincoln. And I'd say just from previous experience, and more importantly, from a presentation that the chief medical examiner did here a year ago, from the new chief deputy medical examiner who I, full disclosure, I used to work for. When he was chief medical examiner at Los Angeles, I was number 2 person. I had 20-some years of experience in this line of work, 10 of which here in San Diego County. And I can tell you that just about everything in town, I mean, he's right on the money. I know that the deputy chief administrative officer of the public safety group, Holly Porter, Dr. Campman, Dr. Lucas are doing everything they can to address staffing issues. That was part of it. It's very difficult in this day and age. There are not many board certified forensic pathologists in the country. So you have many jurisdictions fighting for those. There was a shortage at the toxicology department, which they're in the process of remedying, to my understanding. And they are really turning the corner and doing much quicker turnarounds. But again, not to shirk the quality. These are very, very important investigations that they're doing, so they're going to take time. As the lieutenant said, many times it is 8 to 10 months, but that's primarily for the drug-related or possible drug-related deaths, where you have to look for the toxicology. I know that they're hoping to see a quicker turnaround, and at this point, they do have provisional national accreditation, which they didn't have, but now they do, because they're making these improvements. So the families should begin to see, and I know, again, full disclosure, Doctors Campman and Lucas, full faith in them with anything that they're, because I've worked for them and learned from them. So I know that that they're making great strides. Thank you.
You said we're back to 8 months still. Can you say because of toxicology?
Many times it's because of toxicology.
So when you say toxicology, is it just to run the tox screen, or what is it?
And again, full disclosure, I'm not them. Okay, so they might come here and tell me I'm completely wrong, but I don't think so.
Okay.
I can tell you that the toxicology can be run, but just because the toxicology is on doesn't mean anything. Then those results have to be given to the forensic pathologist who's assigned the case, who looks at those results, incorporates those results into what he or she saw during the initial autopsy, whether that was a full autopsy or not, and then what the investigative report, what medical records indicated, and whatever other consults were done. So it is not just here are the results of the toxicology. That's called step absolutely not. That's why it's a very lengthy process. And the problem that medical examiners have come across over the last 20 years is because of like CSI, right? Everybody thinks you should get these answers like right now.
Right.
And it is very disturbing. Having made thousands of, interact with thousands of grieving family members, as I said earlier on the Capitol today, it's very frustrating for families not to get these answers. These folks don't have the answers. So for them to be in the position to have to tell them that they don't have the answers, it's really a no-win situation because it does take that amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we had our, excuse me, some of us went on the tour of the medical examiner's facilities, I cannot remember how long it takes for a full autopsy.
It depends on the type of autopsy. A full autopsy is probably a couple of hours.
Okay.
That's it.
Right, and but they do have quite a few numbers a day. I cannot remember. So when we were there, and I don't want to be sounding sensitive, but there was a room filled with bodies waiting.
Yeah.
It was very, very shocking and very surprising. I mean, there's millions of people in the county of San Diego. So
When I was there with the grand jury, they had refrigerated box cars outside that have bodies in them. So
I don't think the public realizes that. It's not something that we really want to think about or visualize, but it's reality. You had a question?
I still have a question about the reports. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get. So is there something we can do from a communication standpoint, to make sure the families understand from day one that, look, this is what's happening, complete follow-up, constant, consistent, let the families know. I'm sure we're doing this, right?
When I was there, when I was there, and under the leadership that I know that they have right now, the medical examiner investigators, quite frankly, are unsung heroes. They're the ones who, in addition to the family liaison officer program, they're the ones who interact with families day in and day out. They tell the families what they're permitted to tell the families. Sometimes in law enforcement related deaths, they're not permitted to say anything because the case may be sealed for whatever reasons. But those investigators, that's the toughest job I've ever done in my life. And so they do communicate daily to keep the family the best they can. And then in conjunction with this program, and the lieutenant is correct, This is unheard of, this program. When I was in LA County, we were starting the program in LA County. It's a heck of a lot farther along here, and it seems to be, now that they've worked out some of the issues that they had with it and just getting it up and running, it's a wonderful program. I couldn't support it more than, I support it tremendously, obviously. I'll just leave it at that for now. I have one question for Lieutenant after the board members do.
Okay, I'm good. I just wanted to know, I'll probably come back to it because I just want to know how to comfort the families more and better. That's my concern. So I don't want you to think that we, don't appreciate the challenges, which I know we do, but that's a constant
Right.
that we hear.
And it's a frontline investigator was a primary point of contact outside and the liaison officer program, and sometimes even the pathologist will talk to families as well.
Okay.
And all those folks are trained.
Okay.
And they handle the families very well. Now, so the chaplain, in addition to chaplains that are part of this program.
There's a lot of different people.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we give them resources, there's booklets, and there's even step-by-step what to expect next. A lot of different stuff. Unfortunately, it still doesn't always, bring comfort.
Can you share? I mean, can someone like myself or CLERB ask for a copy of the stuff, like the process and the documentation that you give out?
We can get that for
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Ms. King? One of your slides said that you meet with the homicide lieutenant. What happens in those meetings?
Well, it may not necessarily be, so there's training. Well, I'm the homicide lieutenant, and so the FLOs report to me. So it could be training. So I think it was 2 weeks ago, we did a grief counseling training. We had 2 chaplains put the training on, and it was different experiences on how to deal with different ways that people go through grief. Some people will yell, some people won't talk and will cry. Different things that we can do to try to help those families. And part of it is sometimes just not saying anything, just being there, let them have the moment and work through it. For us, it's a little difficult because we want to solve problems. This is not one that we can solve. So it's kind of going through training that, hey, you have to be a little bit different.
Heat training, right?
Yeah, very.
Me too.
Okay.
So I apologize. I was not here for the beginning. FLOs are sworn officers.
Yes, they're all lieutenants on our department.
Would it be a consideration that may go farther with the families if you hired perhaps like counselors or therapists to do notifications of death? Because especially if you have somebody that you fear may have been there at the end of somebody's life, your family member, or may be responsible for the end of life for your family member, they're probably not going to take that well when you're in a state of grief. You have somebody outside of the police department and outside of the police, like a therapist, a counselor, who will be able to make those death notifications. Would it not land easier with families?
So that's a great idea. Don't get to ultimately make that decision, but it's definitely something that I'll bring back. The FLOs are paired with chaplains. And then depending on a specific individual's family's faith, we have members of the community from that faith that we can reach out to. Also, the resources do have, different people, whether it be counseling and things like that, they could reach out to. Anything that could help would be better. I'll definitely bring it back and talk about it. The FLO's real goal is just to introduce themselves and provide a point of contact. Because most of the answers are going to come through the department, and we want them to have a face and a name and a number. They get cell phone numbers so that they can contact them through their cell phone. And we want to be able to introduce ourselves to them and say, if you need anything, I am here. I will do what I can. I'm not part of the investigation. But any resources we could give them, I think is a great idea. And I'll definitely bring that back.
Vice Chair wants to say something, but first I have a question. Do you interface at all with TIP, Trauma Intervention Program?
So TIPS is something that we have available for them.
And do you recommend any people to come with them, come see them at the time you notify them or? Yeah, I hear it's a I have friends that have done it and it's a pretty good program.
So every case and incident is different. Sometimes TIPS is already there just based on the nature of the law.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do use that as a resource if it's needed.
Okay.
I'll be honest, the chaplains are amazing. They're amazing, and especially not being sworn, they many times gravitate toward the chaplain, and sometimes the folks from TIPS as well.
Question? Thank you. You said in your presentation, I don't know if it was on the slide, but I heard you say it, that sometimes we notify the families. You said sometimes we notify the families. If it is not a flow, who notifies the families?
The medical,
the ME.
ME's office.
Okay, the ME's office. And when the families are notified, I understand the investigations take time and nobody wants to give incomplete information or inaccurate information, but there must be some initial report that is provided. What does that initial information look like or sound like? This is how we presume the person passed, or explain to me. I just am trying to understand what level of information families are receiving at what point in time in the investigation. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
And just to add on to your prior question, sometimes the families already know about the notification, whether they were on scene or someone else has told them or something like that. So sometimes it's just the introduction because they've already been made aware of
okay.
that. So I want to give you the best. Could you just repeat the last part of your question?
I was wondering what level of information families are provided when they are first initially informed, and well, we can come back to who's doing the informing, but to Nadia's point, if these officers are the ones that are trained with grief counseling, et cetera, it just seems to me that they should be the ones making the initial contact. But tell me what information is provided at the beginning.
So they would be in general, like I said, FLOs with the chaplains. We pair them up and they would make, let's say, that notification. Depending on every incident is different, but just generally they would notify them of that the family member has died. I will, if I do a deputy involved shooting as an example, they'll explain to them the family member has died. They introduce who they are, that they're going to try to provide them with resources. They'll give them the booklets, they'll give them that. They'll explain to them, this is kind of how the process is going to be. And they'll tell them right up to that, I don't have a lot of information for you. So every case, again, if it's sealed or if it's not sealed, that's going to make a difference. If the investigation is ongoing and we think that there's going to be a criminal aspect to it, then we have to watch, what they say. But the FLO is not there for any investigative purposes whatsoever. So the only information they can give them is what we can legally give to the public. That's what they're going to get. We try to give them that before the public gets it. So we let them know before we do a media release. We give them the information that's going to come out in the media release, so that they're not surprised. That's something there. The medical exam, that initial external autopsy, if they come up with the manner and the cause of death, we will contact them and tell them, hey, this is going to go out. But basically whatever we can release to the public. Sometimes there's a little bit more if it would not interfere with an investigation.
That's interesting. You say whatever you release to the public. Okay, great.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And then the second question I had was whether it sounds like you do, but you try to maintain the same officer for each family. There's not more than one family liaison officer per family. It's consistent.
That's the goal. Sometimes though, there has been a change because lieutenants have either retired were kind of promoted. And so they weren't in that role anymore, especially the ones that retired. So we had to have other people take over.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Brown?
One of the, you say whatever you can reach the public now, how is that conflict with next of kin? Can we talk about next of kin? Are you supposed to release just information you can reach to the public? To the next of kin, what does that look like? I mean, how do you know who the next of kin is? And how do you, and I thought I heard something from Paul, when you said something, that they have investigators also with the coroner's office that also talk to them about certain things. Do you work hand in hand with the coroner's people as well?
Yeah, so we work hand in hand with the medical examiner's office, specifically the investigator.
Right.
And the ME's office has rules as to who legally the next of kin.
And so how do you navigate that next kin thing? I mean, how do you know who you're going to leave information to? There has to be some kind of something, a signature somewhere that says you can give them. Is it deceased? Are they expecting to have left something with signatures on it saying you can release this information to this person? Are there any kind of limitations or legal challenges to that? Go ahead.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
A couple things, to that point. Everything, it must be made very clear, the sheriff's department is actually doing a favor. Because the legal requirement for identifying, locating, and notifying next of kin is the medical examiner and the medical examiner only, not these guys. So the fact that they're doing it in consultation with the medical examiner's office is a big deal.
Right.
But ultimately, it's up to the medical examiner ultimately to determine, like health and safety code 7100, we'll list that for you if you want, who the next of kin, in what order, and that's what happens. Now, if they go and make a notification to someone who's a family member, but not necessarily the legal next of kin, then the medical examiner's office is going to be responsible for making sure that legal next of kin is aware. That all falls to the enemy, and these folks are doing a favor and working together with them.
In other words, by them having this program, it falls on the medical examiner's office to do stuff that they are doing.
Absolutely, all day, every day, for the many thousands of deaths that occur outside of law enforcement related ones. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yes. And if I may, in reference, and I don't want to, kind of do a gotcha question because I'm not playing here. However, I'll say it and I'll come back to you. We made a policy recommendation about a year ago for the sheriff's department to update their family liaison officer program to include meeting with the families at the end of the investigation to provide them information that, like, hey, and give them the opportunity to ask questions about the investigation itself, because now the investigation's over. The response that we got was pretty much, well, it's kind of already included, but it really isn't included in the policy. So think on that for a minute. And then I'm going to just clarify two other things that you said, and I'll come back to you for a second. In reference to the mental health counselor, that's a wonderful idea. The issue is, the notification has to be done by, it's ultimately the medical examiner. These are peace officers that are doing it. To have a mental health counselor there is a good idea. We try to do it in LA. But ultimately, the chaplain fills a pretty good role in that. But the mental health counselor, if the medical examiner's office wanted to move forward with that, that's a great idea. And have them present, not to do the notification, because the ME they have to know it's been done legally, because they're the ones on the hook for it. But great idea. And then that's it. So back to you, Answer.
So if I understand you correctly, it's at the end of the investigation, after everything is over, can we meet with the family members to answer some of their questions?
Lieutenant, that was our recommendation, because we were hearing from families that they just didn't know, right? They didn't know what was going on during the course of it. But then even at the end, and as I testified, I'll get to on the Capitol today, many times family members at the end of it don't even really know what happened. They have to really sue sometimes to get the information, sometimes, right? So the recommendation was, would you be willing to meet with the families at the end, answer the questions that you can answer? And then, because that would seem to go a long way with the families, at least they have the opportunity to know the results of the investigation prior to reading about it or hearing about it.
Okay, what are the legal implications? You say if the medical examiner's role, responsibility.
At the end of the criminal investigation, there, at the law enforcement criminal investigation, for them, when it's done, cause and manner, everything's finished, right? For them to meet with the family and say, hey, here's what we know.
The law enforcement.
The sheriff's department.
And with the, how would that intersect with the medical examiner?
It would not. The criminal investigation stands alone and separate from the medical examiner investigation.
Okay.
They're responsible for the criminal. It's their investigation that is released and everybody talks about, and the family members say that they don't know the details.
Okay.
You're answering some of the final questions that they might have. Paul, did you want to say something else? Because I have a question.
I think I said enough.
Okay. How soon after the deaths do you actually make contact with families? I know it might be different in some cases, but average.
At average, I would probably say within maybe 4 hours.
Oh, that quickly, okay.
It's quickly. Again, we have to work with the medical examiner. We have to get the right information because we don't want to contact the wrong next of kin. Not to go down the rabbit hole, but sometimes people think that someone's emergency contact is the next of kin.
It's not.
And it's not. For people that they list as maybe their spouse, well, they're actually not their spouse. And so we call them and then their actual spouse doesn't find out. So there's a lot of things, it takes some time. But that would not be from when the actual death is. We have to still get on scene and we still have to get information and figure out what's going on. So it's usually somewhere around there once we get involved and we can contact the FLO and the child.
Okay, so I know that we're running kind of late here and I probably want to wrap it up and I appreciate all your time. But I have one thing. Again, this is general. Run us through without being, sorry to be redundant. From the time you get notification that there's a death, run us through what do you do? Who do you contact? How do you do it? What do you say? And then from that point, does that make sense?
That's what I was asking the process.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah, because our notification is a little bit different. So somebody at a facility or on patrol or wherever, they know what happened before we do. So by the time homicide doesn't always get called immediately, we're trying to figure out, hey, do we even need homicide?
Oh, I meant the flow.
Oh, okay. So when the phone gets notified, their job basically is to stand by, start to get ready, especially a lot of these are in the middle of the night. They're supposed to contact their chaplain, but the chaplain will have an idea of what's going on. And they're immediately just giving some basic information. Hey, we have an in custody death at this location. Here's what we know right now. We're going to be investigating it, and then we'll start working on getting you, more information. And really, it's just a matter of working with the ME, working with our investigators, working with the department, and once we can get the information and we feel confident that, hey, this is the next of kin, ME's okay with us making the notification, and everybody's ready to go, they will drive, if they possible, will drive and go to the residence. Sometimes we do it by phone. Every case is a little bit different, and we try to get them as quickly. And I don't know if that answers.
No, okay, that's 4 hours is pretty.
Yeah, I'd probably say that's about an average. Everyone's a little bit different. We have some individuals that, they live out of state, or we call their phones and we don't get any response. I don't blame them. People don't pick up their phone and they have it on.
Middle of the night.
But yeah, so sometimes it's on.
Any other questions from Clark? Do we have any members of the public that have a question?
What's the longest that it takes to notify a family member?
I don't know what the longest would be. I think it would have to depend on being able to find the family member and
Is it part of your guys' speech to say that you're a liaison?
You mean in the title or?
When you guys tell the family members that their loved one is dead, is it part of your guys' speech to let the public know that you're the liaison? For instance, my mom was not notified that you guys were liaison. You guys were just the people that came to her front door and told her son was
Okay, you
dead.
know what? If you want to talk afterwards about your personal thing, I mean, we're talking in generalities now, but it sounds like you have some questions.
Okay, do they announce that they are a liaison when they go to the families? Do you guys state you're a liaison?
Yes, we explained that we are not part of the investigation, have nothing to do with the investigation or the incident. We're the liaison point of contact. I don't know if they use the word executive liaison, but they will say point of contact for them. Yeah.
Hold on a second. It's okay.
Legal.
Yeah, I think,
So again, I missed the beginning, so I apologize if you've already stated this. Are all the notifications done via phone or are they done in person?
It's a combination of the depends.
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so let's say that she's a family member, but she's not all family members can get the information. Regardless, or does it have to be something that they can legally get it? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Let's say my brother died, but I'm not his signed up to be getting this information.
You're not a direct next of kin.
Yeah, I'm not. Or yeah. How do you determine? Can I get the information? Well, his wife has to be one.
We try to accommodate as many family members as we can.
Okay.
But we're gonna go with the next of kin. Always first, that's our goal.
So that'll be like just.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah, because we understand, we're compassionate enough to know that there are gonna be a lot of people that love this one individual and they may not get along.
Okay.
And they may not, the wife may not share the information
Right.
with you. But yet, you still love your brother and you want, so we do our best to accommodate everybody as much as we can.
Okay.
I want to thank you very much for presenting to us. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one.
We do have one public comment in reference to this item.
Thank you.
And did you have one question? The conclusion of the conclusion?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I'll go to the public comment.
Okay.
We'll go to Tom Packard. Dr. Packard, are you there?
Yes, thanks. And I've been getting bad audio, so I hope this hasn't, if this question's already been asked, let me know. Lieutenant, I appreciate what you've said about the way you've learned and made improvements. Has there been an official evaluation done of the program? And if so, how can the public see that? And if there hasn't been an official evaluation, what are your plans for doing one? I hope that this program is so important that it really warrants an official evaluation to show what you've accomplished and where you're making your improvements.
Thank you, sir. I'm not sure if it would qualify as an official evaluation under your definition, but we're always evaluating ourselves. We've reached, like I said, reached out to LAPD just to see if what we're doing is the same thing that they're doing, any changes. I started in March, and so just me starting in this position in March, I added a few different things, or talked to some of the people that are been doing it for a while that are no longer FLOs because of retirements or promotions. And I said, hey, what would you guys like to see? What would help you guys? And talk to the chaplain. So I don't necessarily know the official. I would probably say it's more unofficial, just trying to improve. And honestly, we've talked to some of the families and we weigh what they say more than what other people say. So the families have given us a lot of good feedback as to how to improve that. Like I don't necessarily know if it's your term, but we do constantly evaluate.
Anyone else? Again, thank you very much. You had a tough job.
You guys do too.
Appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll go to executive officers report.
We are currently finalized. If you recall, about a year ago, a little over a year ago, this board commissioned a study for in custody deaths, and it was put forward the consultant came and made a report, answered questions, and there were 15 areas for follow-up that this board has asked that we move forward and attempt to answer. We're in the process of selecting, going through the request for vendors for that. We hopefully will have an answer within the next month about identifying who that may be, so that we can move forward with that follow-up in custody project that you had asked for. New outside counsel. To my left is Dwayne Bennett. He's been our outside counsel for the last, I don't know, last year or so, and our full-time counsel for the last month and a half to 2 months. As of July 1st, Ellen Groth is our new outside counsel on a full-time basis. Not full-time, but full-time as much as we would need her. We're estimating at this point that maybe upwards of 30 hours a month because of all the changes that we have going on. Dwayne is graciously volunteered to stay on as her backup. So
Good.
So that's a good thing. So Ms. Gross will be here representing CLERB in person starting in August. Thank you for your full-time role over the last couple of months and then for the last year, but I know you're not going away. So thank you.
You can't.
So earlier today, and this is reference to what we've been working on, and I'll give a brief to SB 519 when it comes to item 8A on tonight's agenda. But just today, as was mentioned earlier, the federal judge did order the release of 12 critical incident review board records. They should be released this week unless there's an appeal that's been granted. We are currently, with the new fiscal year starting July 1, we now have a new special investigator position. The whole reason we got this position was to move forward finally after 32 years, after 5 years of trying to make this happen, detention facility inspections of the adult detention facilities in this county. So we will be giving you an update as to that program. I'd like, of course, first to meet with the Sheriff's Department, because everybody that's our liaison right now at the Sheriff's Department, none of the folks there played a role in coming up with the handbook that we drafted or anything. So I'd like to meet with those folks first, and then we'll move forward and give you an update about how we're going to do these inspections. And we believe that this is probably the most critical project that we've taken on, at least in my tenure here. I mean, as far as a project, we have important topics, but this project is critical, and it's about time we do it. We are currently recruiting a new administrative secretary 3 as of July 14th. I will keep you in the loop as that moves forward. And then, again, I talked about Sacramento. I'll talk about that in a little bit. As far as our workload report in June, we had 101 open cases at the end of June. The reason we had that many is because unfortunately, we had a meeting last month that was canceled. But after tonight, hopefully we'll have some more cases that will come off of that. We'll be hopefully down into the 80s where we should be. We have 37 open death cases in June. There were 2 additional ones. We had one, I think it was 2 additional deaths in June, and we had 1 last week. We have 12 open uses of force resulting in great bodily injury, 8 discharges of firearm, but no open uses of force and protests or false or protective events. Attachment C is our caseload report. I'm not really going to go over that. We gave it to you. If you have any questions about it, please let me know. We did, over the month of June, provide many. We provided 26 media articles, most of which dealing with, we'll talk about it. One about the grand jury recommendation that was mentioned in public comment today. Interestingly enough, and I wish since this meeting has started, the Sheriff's Department has sent out 2 emails, one at 5:17 and one at 6 p.m. The 5:17 one said that they have responded to the grand jury's report, which was the recommendation, which was in line with ours as far as scanning folks going into the detention facilities. I was unable to open that. So at 6 o'clock tonight, they sent an updated one, and it looks like the links work a little bit better. But because we've had this meeting, I can't tell what the response is on the part of the Sheriff's Department to that grand jury recommendation in line with ours to scan. We are still waiting for a response from the Sheriff's Department for the resubmittal of that policy recommendation to scan folks entering. So I'm curious to see what the response is to the grand jury. I would imagine that's going to be very similar to the one that we get as well. So that was the article I sent out. We sent out, again, 26 media articles. I also sent out one email in reference to the 832.7 reportable type of cases. Now, if you look at our agenda, and members of the public and even the board members, if you look at our agenda, There are now deputies identified and probation officers, not this month, but for deputies identified in our agenda. And the reason that they're identified is because it is reportable out for certain topics. The use of force resulting in great bodily injury, any discharge by someone at a person. We had a discharge of firearm case, but we did not identify the deputy because it was undetermined who actually fired. So that's how come that deputy is not identified. If any sustained findings are made under certain categories that we've laid out in that email to all of you, we will also be reporting those deputies' names in public in our final findings report and our final reports. This is in line with the law. And we'll also begin putting those on our website when we can get that project up and off the ground. Policy recommendation responses, we received 2 from the Sheriff's Department. Those are attachments E and F. Attachment E was in reference to a policy recommendation that this board made, reference to body worn cameras, and to expand it to record all law enforcement related contacts, to include telephonic calls for service, deputy callbacks, things along those lines. The Sheriff's Department responded and said that the policy that they have in place, which was updated June 3rd of 2021, basically deals with that, to do all the law enforcement contacts, but to expand it to say shall is not always feasible, and they're not going to do that because sometimes the report writing areas in the stations are open and there are multiple deputies typing and making calls, and putting the person on speakerphone to record the conversation sometimes is obviously impractical and not appropriate for having conversations, whatnot. So that was the response on that policy recommendation. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, of course, of course. So I noticed that, and I understand that putting someone on a speakerphone while they're doing the interview in order to capture recording would be tough to do in a busy and loud department or office setting. However, it seems to me that all we're concerned about capturing is the deputy's conversation. At least in the cases that we've had so far, in which a member of the public says, the deputy said XYZ to me. All we need to know is what the deputy said. We don't necessarily need to know what the member of the public said. So I don't see how that would prohibit the use of the body worn camera to capture the deputy or the Sheriff's Department person speaking.
I understand what you're saying. I will respectfully disagree. I think that you need both sides of the story. Yes, we do want to know what the deputies are saying, especially if there's like profanity or whatnot. I get it. But I don't know what's being said to them. I don't know what precipitated their response. I don't know what's going on the other side. I don't really know. And I think that I think it's appropriate to hear both sides to make that. That's just me. But again, it's something we can. It's whatever you.
I would just say it would also offer some level of protection. I mean, if they said, a member of public says, they said this to me. And if it's there on the recording that they didn't say that, then wouldn't that be useful to the deputy as well?
I would think so. I would think so. And again, I can't speak for the department. Perhaps from board member liaison query or whatnot, or if anybody wants to come up now and address that. But
I will ask during the prayer.
This may be irrelevant to this topic, but I sat on a community review board for well over 2 years. Every single phone conversation was recorded and was made available to every board member on community review board.
So every phone call that an officer had from the office, from the headquarters or whatever,
Was recorded.
Okay.
Both sides.
Okay.
Both sides.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to get permission from not only what the deputy is saying, like you said, but the person who is speaking to the deputy. Because I currently sit on the privacy advisory board for the city, and we're running into a lot of that. Like they don't want the deputy, they want to restrict technology use of law enforcement. They try to stop it. They're saying that, okay, body worn camera, but all the other stuff they don't want out of it. They want to shut it down. So we need to find it down instead of people who are being interviewed. They need to give us the permission to say, I'm thinking that might be one.
But I'm sure it may be. And then, so we'll wait for Vice Chair Pintar to perhaps ask for questions at the end and then see if the folks in the back and maybe shed stuff. Yes. Oh, it's still me. So in reference to attachment F, this is a case in which there were concerns, specifically with the Imperial Beach substation, with the way that deputies have been responding to members of Cop Watch or members of the community filming them. And we had made a recommendation that we had had 3 specific incidents over the last year and a half where there were some concerns, and that this board has actually sustained a finding of 2. So we made a recommendation to update, for the sheriff's department to update its legal affairs update entitled "The Public Can Report to Police and Document its review of all deputies, specifically those at the Imperial Beach Station." In May of this year, the department not only released it to the Imperial Beach Station, but I believe released it to every sworn member of the department through the learning management system, in which they had 30 days to log in and get refreshed on that critical training. So the department not only implemented this recommendation, they went above and beyond and did every station. And so with that, I have no updates on some sustained finding pending response. That's not on the sheriff's department. That's still on me. That's why we don't have those yet. And I think that's where we are, unless anybody has any questions for me.
What's the reason for the change in the outside fence?
Well, I think there were a couple of reasons. Number one, you know that there was over the last year and a half or so, the St. Agnes for Justice obviously made a report in which the request was made. One of the recommendations was to kind of look at having outside counsel, the mere appearance of not being independent if we have county counsel was problematic for that group, but also problematic for members of the public. I can tell you that also one of the reasons that change was made was because, quite frankly, county council was also having other projects to do. And it was, I think, tying up some of their resources where some folks can't do the job internally that they need to do because they're walled off from other entities within, because of their representation of us as well.
I'm just referring to recent.
Oh, okay. My bad. Mr. Bennett will explain.
Honorable Chair and members of the board, I can explain. Mr. Parker, first, when the change was made, he actually contacted me early in the morning. He didn't realize that I never sleep. So I picked up the phone call around 4:30 in the morning. He was explaining to me that,
I'm sorry.
I was in hospital.
Sleepy in there.
I was in when he said, when he explained to me what had happened with the county, he asked me if I could step in and assume the job full time. As you know, and as I think I explained to you all, I serve as outside counsel to the city's Commission on Police Practices, and I have my hands full. They're trying to get up and running. That's the first assignment I took, and then I took this assignment to back up county council at the time. So when Mr. Parker asked me, I said, I can't do it because my plate is full, but I have the perfect person for you. And Ms. Brooks actually was a deputy for me when I served as general counsel for the Port of San Diego. And so she worked for me. She's excellent in policing. I thought I had the best person for Paul that I could recommend, so I recommended her. And I agreed to stay on this time as her backup. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. She told her that Paul's going to call her at 4:30. Yeah. Okay. She's smart enough not to pick up that phone call. Thank you.
Any other questions? 4:30 in the morning. I'm sorry. All right. Caller, anything else? I really have nothing tonight. We're running kind of late, so I'll go to new business, which we don't have any. Unfinished business. Paul got plane back here in time for a meeting from Sacramento. And you want to update us on SB 519?
Sure. So earlier today, 9 o'clock this morning, I was at the state capitol for Senate Pro Tem President, Tony Atkins, to verbalize again what this board has allowed me to verbalize, which is the support of the transparency component of the bill. Since we last spoke, there have been some amendments to the bill. What the bill initially contemplated or proposed was the creation for every county to have the ability to create a Department of Corrections that would take over basically, right, the detention component at the county level, and to be run by an executive officer, executive director, whatever the title was, who had experience in running such operations. Through many efforts by the Senate Pro Tem President and law enforcement and other groups, the bill has now been amended. The transparency component remains, absolutely remains. Now there's a component that removes the Department of Corrections, but indicates that perhaps there should be a local detention facility monitored through the BSCC, who is to the state agency that provides oversight of the detention facilities, to be able to respond to any request by a board of supervisors, the board of supervisor, governor, and then some other folks, senators or whatnot. But primarily as it pertains to us, the board of supervisors, that if a board of supervisors makes a request to this local detention facility monitor, that they must look into the concerns brought forward by the board of supervisors. So this morning, and I can forward my comments, but basically I pretty much said the same thing I said back in April, which is that we obviously transparency needs to happen, and this board is fully on board with that. And that we will continue to look at, this board will continue to look at now with these amendments, the local detention facility monitor component. It passed that assembly, public safety assembly, I'm sorry, not real well versed in what the committee was, public safety committee assembly, 6-2, it passed. So now it moves forward to, there's another process, and again, Vice Chair Pintar can school me on this, but now it's getting serious. Now it's getting down to being down to the wire as to whether or not this bill is going to pass. When I spoke to the Senate Pro Tem and her staff, obviously they would of course love as much support as possible for something along these lines. So that's the update. I don't know that Vice Chair Pintar may tell me maybe that timing is going to be maybe a couple months still, maybe a month, 2 months.
I don't know which committee it was at, but you said public safety, you said assembly
Yes,
public
I did.
safety, so
Yes,
I
I
don't
did.
know if it's already gone to the Senate Public Safety Committee yet.
The way it starts is.
It started at the Senate,
House where it's introduced.
where it's introduced, and then it goes to Assembly, so it's getting close. I mean, it's been through committees of jurisdiction in both the Senate and the House, and I have made the motions previously to ask the board to support the measure. I believe that the piece of the bill that folks were most concerned with had to do with a new Department of Corrections, establishing Department of Corrections. That part has been removed. So I'd ask that, I don't know that we can take a position on it today because it's not agendized. Maybe, or may I make a motion, or should I ask for it to come to a future meeting?
That's
I think I'd like to, why don't we agendize it for this August? In the interim, Paul, if you can get us the verbiage, the new verbiage of the bill. Yeah, we can review that and we'll put it on the agenda for August.
Thank you.
Do keep in mind the legislature is going on recess, so they won't hear anything until later. Well, they'll be back in August, but
It'll give us time to review it.
so if we set something now, that they're not, policy committees are ending this week, so.
Sure. But is it still appropriate though to bring it back in?
Certainly bring it back. I'm just letting you know that if you wanted to get it done tonight, there's no committee that would do it, so.
Because I'm not familiar with all the amendments yet, so I would like to know what they are and review them and then have some time.
And then there are 2 requests to be read in, well, actually 1 request to be read into the record for this item. And I do believe we have a request to speak.
Sure.
The comments for this item come from Robin Sales, My name is Robin Sales, and I'm a retired LCSW and co-chair of the BHAB Criminal Justice Subcommittee. Speaking for myself tonight, my passion and purpose have been to prevent the incarceration of people with behavioral health issues. It is my belief that had they been offered treatment in the community and diverted from the county jails, many lives and millions of dollars would have been saved. However, once incarcerated, all inmates deserve the highest quality care. I believe that Saxon Rodriguez, Masterna, and many others would be alive today if AB 268 were in effect. AB 268 is a bill, and she's referenced SB 519 as well here, but going off onto AB 268, reading into the record, is a bill that would amend the penal code to add 2 additional members to the Board of State and Community Corrections, a licensed healthcare provider and a licensed mental behavioral healthcare provider. The bill would also require the board to develop and adopt regulations setting minimum standards for mental health care at local correctional facilities that meet or exceed the standards for health services in jails established by the National Commission on Correctional Health Care. I strongly support this bill. The addition of 2 healthcare professionals to the board would ensure that there's a strong voice for mental health care in the decision-making process. The regulations that the board would be required to develop would help to ensure that incarcerated persons with mental health issues receive the care they need. Incarcerated persons with mental health issues are at a higher risk of suicide, self-harm, and violence. They also often have difficulty accessing the care they need. This bill would help to address these challenges and improve the quality of care for incarcerated persons with mental health issues. I urge you, as an oversight board, to support AB 268. It is a common sense bill that will make a real difference in the lives of incarcerated persons with mental health issues. And that's from Robin Sales. Next, we had a request to speak from Dr. Packard in reference to this bill, or I'm sorry, to this item number. Dr. Packard, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, I was disappointed to learn that the main element of SB 519 was that would have allowed the county supervisor control over the jails has been removed. If that won't be reinserted, I encourage the CLERB to advocate strongly to ensure that the bill will be as impactful as possible. For example, please work to make sure that sheriffs will be required to release all internal investigative records related to in-custody deaths. Someone with legal expertise should review Section 1 to make sure there aren't loopholes that would enable the sheriff to withhold information. Also, please insist upon the inclusion of a provision that gives investigators the ability to make unannounced visits to the jails they are investigating and speak confidentially to incarcerated people, and the inclusion of state board authority to launch investigations based on complaints it receives, not only in response to requests from outside officials, as suggested by Michelle Deach of the Prison and Jail Innovation Lab. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Packard. Chair Delaney, I see no additional requests to speak for this item.
Thank you. I have a question for council. Is there any concerns about our purview when we address support or not support bills and laws and things like that?
No, I'm sure, not that I mean, you as a board can take a position on any piece of legislation that comes before you.
Okay.
It's up to the legislation to consider that within their own purview.
Okay. We had talked about a provision of the bill where there were the critical incident reports were released to the public. And we had some concerns about family members maybe getting them ahead of time so that they could decide what they wanted released to the public. Maybe you could have some input in that. Do you remember that conversation at all?
I do now.
Yeah.
But I have not talked to, Senator about that.
Okay.
But I'll be in further conversation, so I will.
Yeah, I think that was something that our board was concerned about, and that was me. That was you. Okay.
I agree with that.
It's your fault.
Okay. If somebody else said some of the family members didn't want that information, that might not want this information. It's true.
I would just, that was my comment, and that did not come from any of the families that are here on a regular basis. It's just my feeling that it is as strongly as I feel that the family should have the information, the CIRB reports right away. I think I believe it should be up to them about whether or not they get released to the media.
Or at least at what time they get.
Or at least, yes, they should have some say. I believe that families should have some say into when or how or what is distributed more broadly. I only see it. Again, this is not, I don't believe this has come from any of the families that have been at these meetings on a regular basis, but it just seems to me that I just don't want to cause them any more pain, and maybe that is a painful thing for them.
I absolutely understand. Like I said, having dealt with thousands of family members over the last 25 years, under those circumstances, it always been my practice in the agencies that I worked for from a medical examiner perspective to do exactly, meet with the family first, make sure they know exactly what's going to be released and then release it. So I completely understand, I fully support, and obviously I'll do what you want related to the center.
Terrific, thank you. All right, if there aren't any more comments or about that, we're gonna go to board member comments. Anyone have anything they want to say before we go to our last?
I'll just say one brief comment. We heard a lot of public comment earlier that expressed, not necessarily understanding our purview, our jurisdiction, our role. I would encourage those members of the public to come and hear next month about how that looks, because I understand that's what we'll talk about a little bit. It's because, there are things we can do, there are things we can't do. And I think if we have jurisdictions, we have state statutes that govern our behavior. We have county statutes that govern our behavior and govern what we do. So I just encourage everyone to learn about what we do, because I'm still learning about what we do. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Then it was August, right? Or did we change it to September? I'm sorry, I'm losing my mind. It's September, I'm sorry.
I'm encouraging September.
Yeah, but it will be, I think, a very informative presentation, and I encourage everyone to attend.
Okay, go ahead. I just wanted to thank the members of the probation department for the tours that they provide me, and thank you to our CLERB staff for facilitating those tours. I visited both the East Mesa Detention Facility as well as the Youth Transition Center, which is a really nicer facility, and it was very enlightening, and I would encourage the rest of the board to visit those, especially as we are talking about turning more of our focus to probation in the coming months. I think it was very helpful. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department for their report about the family liaisons today. And I know that several members of the public have commented about mental health and how that intersects with what's happening with the sheriff in our jails. And I don't know that I would like to ask that sometime in the future we have a presentation, maybe from the Sheriff's Department. I guess it would be from the Sheriff's Department about how the Sheriff's Department intersects with the mobile crisis response teams, how they work together, who makes the decision about when those are called for assistance. I don't know all those protocols. Is that an appropriate thing for us to ask from the Sheriff's Department, or would that be someone else at the county?
No, I will work with the Sheriff's Department and make that formal request for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Any other board members? Questions? All right. I'd like to welcome our sheriff's liaisons. Come on up. I think we have some. Oh, hi, Sergeant Tingley.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, myself.
Good.
So I'm Sergeant Tingley with the Sheriff's Department. We have here Sergeant Bracy. I'm going to be taking on a new role here with the Sheriff's Department within our Division of Inspectional Services. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you for the opportunity to come here and work with the CLERB board. To also work with all the investigators, Lynn and Paul and everybody behind me. It's been a learning experience for sure. So I appreciate that. With that said, I will be answering the questions tonight just because I don't want to put that pressure on Bracy, and I did most of the handling of the recommendations during my tenure. So, but I will step aside and allow Bracy to introduce himself, and then I will answer anything that the board may have as it relates to the lead.
Thank you. Welcome, Sergeant.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'll be respectful of everyone's time here. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the job. It's a new assignment. It's a lot to learn. I know I'm looking forward to it, but I've been in this capacity for about 2 months. So what I can say is that from my experience, Paul, you and your staff that are diligent, you work hard. I have a great relationship with all of them so far. I look forward to forging new relationships with you and fostering those relationships as we go along. Glad to be here, so.
Anybody have any questions for him?
I've been on the department, real quick, I've been on the department for about 17 years, give you a little background about myself. Fire service Marine, did about 4 years of that, and then 17 years on the department. I've worked in a ton of different capacities, I've worked in the jails, the courts, patrol. So I have a lot of experience, but there's still a lot to learn, so. Big shoes to fill, starting to change, so.
Welcome. Welcome.
Welcome. Yeah.
Mr. Hayes, did you have a question?
No, I'm just saying welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you. Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions? All right, Vice Chair.
Sergeant Tingley.
All right.
You want to answer my question about why it would be prohibitive to have the body worn camera on just recording one side of the conversation?
Let me just answer the question as a whole, if that's okay.
Please.
So our deputies, to include myself and most uniform patrol that wear body worn camera, we do record when we make phone calls. The thing is that when we put the word shall record, we don't always have the opportunity to record. We're not always in a position to record those conversations. And sometimes the phone calls that we make are in a time of sensitive things being said in the background, stuff like that. And although we do have to make that phone call, we just don't have that ability to do it. So I do want everybody to know that we do record, and the cameras, the body worn cameras, everybody that works for the sheriff's department, we understand those are our friends. You know, we need those cameras and we utilize those cameras. I mean, we've implemented them in our jail system. So we know that those cameras are important and we know that information is great. And as a supervisor working at a patrol station, and any supervisor that's dealing with body worn cameras, we rely on those to help us make decisions when it comes to people filing complaints and things like that. So with that recommendation, we just wanted to let everybody know that we do understand the need to record for phone calls, and we do that on a regular basis. It's just we don't want to put the deputies in a position where sensitive material and or information could be released.
Thank you. I would just say that in the time that I've been doing this, the body worn camera and recordings have helped me. I just think they serve you. I think they serve the deputies very well as well to have that information.
100%. And I don't think there's a person here that's going to tell you that that's incorrect. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant, also for sitting through the meeting here. Appreciate it. Probation Department, do you have anything you'd want to say?
Well, sure.
Sorry, thank you very much.
Ross Boone, Supervisor, Probation Department with Internal Affairs. And I've been in and out of the unit a couple of times over the years, most recently on a temporary assignment, which has now been made permanent. So I was the CLERB liaison, and now I'm again the CLERB liaison. I'm happy to do it. Happy to be here. I appreciate y'all who came out. Sorry I couldn't be the tours, but I know a couple of you toured the facilities, and we appreciate that. But yeah, we're here to work with you. We've had a good relationship for a long time, and no reason to believe that's going to change. I'm experienced with collecting the information that you need, answering the questions that you have. I can't answer them on the spot, and I'll definitely get back to you in a reasonable amount of time.
Appreciate it. And also, if you have time, if you could reschedule some tours, I cancel at the last minute. Really wanted to see. So I'd love the opportunity to.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. And with that, thank you.
I like to thank the little sister in the back there with the chef protecting us all the time. She's there every day. Comes in,
Thank you.
Make sure we're safe. I like that.
We see you at supervisors meetings as well. All right, with that, council, do you need to read us back into closed session? How does this is new?
No, I would tell you what you're doing, you're adjourning the regular meeting, and we will just reconvene in closed session with the original reading and
All right, sounds good. So this meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene in 5 minutes.